So I'm Aaron Williams, founder of Atlanta Bitcoin. Atlanta Bitcoin is a Bitcoin ATM operator, and what those are devices that you can approach and exchange dollars for Bitcoin. This is the idea there is to lower the barrier to obtaining Bitcoin, and so before I get too far into that, I guess I'll just tell you about how did I get there and just talk about the opportunities in the space of Bitcoin. So for almost 12 years I worked in the payment processing industry, the traditional payment processing industry, the one that is part of the machine, where you have merchants who connect with gateways, who connect with payment processors, who connect with Visa or MasterCard, who connect with the issuing bank, right? And everybody's getting a piece of that, mostly the issuer, but everybody's getting a piece of that, and they're all a part of this this network that I think Bitcoin is doing a lot better, which is it's a trust-based network, right? So you have to control who has access to it, and it's really, it's would you rather control access to try to control access to a network, or would you rather have access mathematically provable, right? So that's kind of the difference between those. So as I was working there, I was listening to NPR one day, and I heard this story about Bitcoin and how the price, it was in April of 2013, how the price went up to the roof at the time, which was $266, and then dropped back down to 60 or 50 something. And I said, this is great. It's technology, it's payments, it's new. This is awesome. I want to explore it, and just so happened to be getting burnt out in the day job. So started exploring that, learning as much as I could. Actually went on LinkedIn, and whoever had Bitcoin in their I just searched for Bitcoin. Whoever came up, I was connecting with them. And I actually connected with a lot of interesting people that helped me along the way. But soon after that, there was a conference in San Jose, Bitcoin 2013, and so that was another part of the experience that I was enjoying, learning Bitcoin and feeling this energy, and some of you may have, I don't know if any of you were there, but it was a very exciting conference. Came back from that and just basically was looking at what's my play in this space. Do I figure something out within my current job with the payment processing industry? Of course, they were at the stage where they're like, yeah, whatever. So they didn't care about it. And so I started exploring what are these different opportunities there. And the funny thing is that there's opportunities all over the place. So you can't walk another 2 feet without finding an opportunity. If you imagine this new financial space and everything that it's going to need, I mean, you can just look around what's available in the current payment infrastructure in terms of usability, and find the gap between what's available in Bitcoin, and there's your opportunity. So it's it's hard to exaggerate the level of opportunity that there is in Bitcoin for starting your own company and creating a product. So I explored Bitcoin, and there was this thing, mining. You might have heard of mining. So at the time, the mining difficulty was going through the roof, and I guess I'm jumping ahead because you guys might not understand the mining difficulty, but it basically controls the way that new Bitcoins are created.
Why is it difficult?
What's that?
Why is it difficult?
It's difficult because
everybody would be doing it otherwise.
well, it is now. I mean, it used to not be so difficult, right? The reason it's difficult is because as there's more processing power on the network, it has to self-adjust. Because essentially, if you're mining, if a lot more power comes onto the network to mine these transactions, computing power, then you're starting to create them faster. And when you create them faster, you're screwing up the plan, right? The plan is that we're going to slowly create these coins over time, right? And so it's built in. It's got this this logic built in that essentially self-corrects that difficulty. So when there's more power on the network, it increases the difficulty every so often. And if it just so happens that the power, the computing power drops, then it would adjust accordingly. So so I looked in at the time. Bitcoin mining power was like going like this. So it was a really exciting place to be, but it was extremely risky place to get into the market, right? So my next idea, or my next thought was, let me go and explore these Bitcoin ATMs. I had seen them in San Jose at the conference I talked about, and so starting exploring that, and when I applied my knowledge of the payment processing system, and kind of layered it onto the Bitcoin landscape, I imagined all these ATMs being out there, and then people providing services through those ATMs. So I imagine an infrastructure or essentially providing service to these ATM operators, right? Which then they can offer those services to their to the people who are using those ATMs. For example, maybe there's a loyalty program, right? So you buy so many coins and now you get a free 1/10 of a coin, something like that. So there was a lot of opportunity there, but I said that's not really where I don't know if I want to invest enough to build a platform that's going to do that, right? So I said, let me get into the Bitcoin ATM world. That looks easy enough. I'll just set one up, and next thing you know, the money's rolling in, right? Well, not so simple, because it was right around that time that the actually a little bit before the conference that the Financial Crimes Enforcement Unit declared that, Enforcement Network declared that that exchanging dollars for Bitcoin, that classified you as a money transmitter. And so what that means is that you essentially are now the boots on the ground for anti-money laundering. You're the entity that has to keep track of who is it that you're doing business with, how much business are you doing with them, and when they exceed certain parameters, you're reporting them to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Unit Network. I see a lot of frowns based on that.
Can you tell us a little bit about the network?
FinCEN?
Yeah.
So, I don't really have a lot of history about FinCEN. Essentially, my favorite thing about FinCEN is that the director said in front of Congress that cash is still the best way to launder money.
Right.
Especially if you're too big to fail a bank.
Right, exactly. Yes. So essentially, this is the group that regulates the money transmission business in the United States. And so, if you are a Western Union or a check casher,
Or an insurance agent.
or an insurance agent, okay, all right, then you have to register with them and follow the rules, which essentially are outlined in the Bank Secrecy Act. So you have to have a program, they call it an AML program, which is essentially a list of procedures about how your business is going to comply with the Bank Secrecy Act. And so one of the rules, for example, if you deposit or if you withdraw, if you do transactions worth $10,001 in a day, then that is a suspicious activity that warrants a suspicious activity report. And let's say that you want to avoid that SAR, we call it, and you want to, you're going to spread your $10,000 over 3 days. Well, that's called layering. Layering gets a cash transfer report. So there are a lot of rules there, and you have a lot of people who would say, well, they're in my business, and why should they be paying attention to the type of transactions I do? Well, and they may call into question the effectiveness of anti-money laundering rules, and so I don't really take a position on that. What I know is that if you want to start a business and you want to exchange Bitcoin for dollars and push and try to carry Bitcoin to the next level, you've got to play by those rules, or you go to jail or prison. So, so that's there are a lot of very vocal people who talk about this is horrible. Bitcoin was what's the favorite phrase? Basically, Bitcoin was designed to not be like this, or something to that effect, which I don't believe it was designed with that as a primary goal. So there's a balance you have to weigh. Are you going to, do we let this thing, the Bitcoin and the blockchain and this distributed public ledger, do we want to see it break through the surface, and perhaps it sheds things like anonymity behind, right? But now the world